Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today I'll be explaining Surah At-Takwir, ayah number 1, 2, 3 and 6. Let us begin. In Surah Iza Shamsu Kuwirat, the sun is a nature nuclear reactor. When the sun exhausts its store of nuclear fuel, some 5 billion years from now, it will evolve into a bloated red giant, gobbling up Mercury and Venus, scorching the Earth. After injecting its outer layers in the form of a colorful planetary nebula, the sun will then be compressed into a tiny white dwarf star, as mentioned in the Holy Quran. Now, Iza Shamsu means the sun, and Kuwirat means compressed into tiny stars. Compressed means like being tightly held together. As you can see in ayat number 3, and the translation is, and when the mountains are blown away. Now, my theory on how the mountains are going to be blown away is that inside a mountain there is, the layers of the earth and there's core, but there's also water underneath. So in the deep water cycle where it starts to bubble up, and when that heat of bubbling up stops, it then goes up towards the mountain, like upwards, and then causes an underwater explosion, but inside a mountain. And the mountain cannot hold that large amount of water explosion, so the edges of the mountain start to fall apart, and then the whole mountain starts to explode. That's why in this surah Al-Takwir and ayat number 3 in the Tarjuma, and when the mountains are blown away. For you to understand, I have this picture here, and as you can see, it says, and the mountains will be walled and fluffed up. So here you can see that the mountain is exploding. As you can see, water that causes a water explosion. That's how. Now in ayat number 6 of Surah At-Takwir, here is the tarjuma, here is the translation. And when the seas are set on fire. Now it actually means that the sea is going to be set on fire, and when the mountains are blown away, that's when the seas are going to be set on fire. Here I'll show you a diagram. Here is the picture of the ocean set on fire. As you can see here, the fire is technically inside the water, but it's not being put out. That's how. That's why in this surah, in this ayat number 6 of Surah At-Takwir, which is the translation, and when the seas are set on fire. Now I'll be explaining the ayat number 2 of Surah At-Takwir translation. Now, which is about the stars. Now, once all the helium disappears, the forces of gravity will take over, and the sun will shrink into a dwarf star, as mentioned in the first ayat. Now, all the outer material will disappear, leaving behind a planetary nebula when a star dies. It injects a mass of gas and dust, known as its envelope, into space. As you can see in this picture, it is a star but has already died. So this is how it looks like when it has already died. Here I will be explaining ayat number 1, which is when the sun will explode. Here is a picture of the sun exploding. It cools down because it contains helium and hydrogen. And once the helium and hydrogen, the sun starts to cool down, but it also starts to expand. And once it has expanded so large that it can't hold enough gas and helium, it bursts, thus destroying the entire universe. But if only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to, because we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who can cause this destruction. Now I want to explain a theory of mine. Well, not technically a theory, a black hole kind of thing. The first type of a black hole, stellar black hole. And now first things first, a stellar is formed when a star dies. When a star dies, and all that's left is nothing but its gases and dust. And that's how a stellar black hole is formed. As you can see in this diagram, it is a stellar life cycle. Here is the birth of a star and how a stellar black hole is formed, and then main sequence, and then the old age, and then the death, and then the remnant. That's all for today. I hope you guys have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.